And the way we often usually start, is to have you tell us a little bit about the evolution of your feminist identity. How did you become a feminist?
That's it's a good question. It's very difficult to answer that because when I was at school and when I was at university, although clearly there was a lot of feminism around, it certainly didn't hit me. I went briefly after the age of 11 to a girls' grammar school, and it was really good, and I did very well in it. And my father was in the Royal Air Force, and we moved to another place, and I went to a co-educational grammar school, and it was interesting retrospectively that I didn't do so well. I didn't come top in very much, or actually I saw my performance deteriorate. And I do remember in those days it was very strange because when I went to this co-educational school, I had to do needlework and cookery, whereas the boys did British Constitution, which is effectively politics. And I never understood that because I knew that's what I would be good at, and I wasn't particularly good at, absolutely no good whatsoever at needlework. And cookery actually I enjoy now, but I wasn't very good at it then, and I didn't really want to do that. So I mean, so that's when, how was I? 13. I first started thinking that this is a bit strange, and I didn't understand why I was being made to do something on a gender basis that I actually wasn't very good at when I'd have been really good at the other thing. So I suppose I can trace it to then. And I always liked doing things that apparently boys did. And I was always called a sort of tomboy. I'm talking about now growing up in the 60s. Sometime later, when I went to university, I don't think... I did psychology then, and I think there were about 3 women in the whole class. And I think there was a female lecturer appointed halfway through my course, and she didn't stay very long, and I suspect she had a really hard time. Then afterwards, my daughter was born, I think about 3 weeks after I finished my undergraduate degree. So again, it was really weird because we didn't have any money, and my husband went out to work, and I was supposed to clean the house and cook. I mean, not because he said so, but because it was only fair that I did. And I wasn't very good at that and didn't really enjoy it. And in fact, he also was doing a teacher training course, and I was writing his essays for him, although I guess mustn't say anything about that. It's some time ago, so it doesn't really matter. And he was always, very well aware that I wanted to be an academic, and always supported that. When my daughter was born, I got really depressed. Nothing to do with her, and absolutely convinced, even today, nothing whatsoever to do with hormones, but it was because I was being put into this role where I didn't really exist anymore. Certainly I existed in the family, and I loved my family, but I remember my mother-in-law, who I was very fond of, saying, when I they lived in Scotland, saying, when she introduced me to someone, "Oh, this is Paula, she's a mother." And in fact, Derry, my husband, said, "And actually she's going to be a psychologist, and she's got a psychology degree." So it was, I don't know, maybe it's different. Hopefully it's different for you too, because you're that much younger, but so it was sort of strange, and I still wouldn't necessarily even know about feminist ideas or literature formally, but as I'm trying to sort of point out, I kind of was always really uncomfortable with what it was that girls and women, and particularly mothers, were supposed to do. So about 3 or 4 years later, no, a bit longer than that, anyway, a few years later, about 5 or 6 years later, I started my PhD, which was on postnatal depression, looking at it. And then again, a very radical way, because I started off by using an objective measure and a survey for the pilot study. And I assumed I was going to develop it that way. But what I found was that when I went into people's houses and talked to them, there were other things going on as well as just the data I was collecting, and I decided that it would be useful to interview them in depth. And the London School of Economics, where I was doing my PhD, they said, "You're not really supposed to do that. I don't know And
somehow that would be more intrusive, or
oh, that you just didn't do it then.
You just didn't do
you
it.
Just do it. I mean,
Interviews were
you
not
just
a
didn't do it.
legitimate
You
data.
measured and you used. You know, it was. I mean, people didn't really do qualitative research in. I keep saying those days. I ought to date it.
You have it here, but
I think probably 1980 was when I registered. Oh, right, you got I sent you.
yeah,
Sorry.
80 to 88, you were working.
Right,
with
thanks.
PFV, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And excuse me.
So really not done at that point in terms of
Well, no, certainly not at LSE, and I don't think anywhere else. In fact, what I did was to go back to phenomenological sociologists to get the ideas from. And symbolic interactionism, both of which were considered and still are really sociology.
Right.
Although I wanted to look from a very much a psychological point of view. So for some time I didn't really fit in anywhere. When I was doing my PhD, after 2 or 3 years, excuse me, Sue Wilkinson, who I don't know if you've interviewed her or not, she had organised a social psychology symposium at the annual British Psychological Society Social Psychology Conference, which happened to be in Oxford. It happened to be there. And I thought, well, that sounds interesting. It was the first thing I'd actually noticed for a long time at a conference that I thought was interesting. It was about, I can't remember what it was about, but it was about women, and the word feminism was in it. I mean, by then I think I knew what feminism was and considered myself to be one.